All rise. What's in a district court of County, Washington, State of Michigan, is now set. All those have been for the court drawn near, the Honorable United States.
You may be seated. Morning.
You were wondering where my kids took my car this weekend. Took my coat out of it.
You have no others? No, I'm just thought I'd ask. Your kids took your car, took your coat.
Yeah, I had to do some moving. My car is a truck. They disrupted me.
I blame a lot of stuff on my kids too. Was I expecting anybody else on this side?
Not today.
Not today. Okay. All right. So it may go peacefully for me. Or not. All right. The way, so that, and I don't know how well we clarified it, but there were what I'm calling affirmative cases. There are 10 of those that we have. Those I'm hearing in the afternoon. The issues involving those cases. These are the summary proceeding actions, which we will continue to deal with. So court does call the case of Arbor One West versus Rico McGuire and Arbor One. And Arbor One is also included in that et al. All of the cases.
Those Rico.
Alexander.
All right. The last time when I was reviewing my notes where we were is that we were trying to organize the testimony that was coming before the court. And I believe the individuals from the city of Ypsilanti had been coming down all the time and had not yet gotten to them. And so I was hoping we'd get to their testimony this morning.
Yeah, I would like to start with that, Your Honor.
All right, very good. Who would you like to call?
I think we should start with Joe Myers.
All right, sir, please come forward, be sworn.
Testimony about the bill, we prove the whole truth and nothing but the truth, so we got.
Yes, sir.
See, first and last name for the record, please.
My name is Joseph Myers, ALCH. I'm the Director of Community Services for the city.
May inquire.
Morning. So can you explain just a little of your background with this position?
Yeah, so as the Director of Community Services, the head of the building planning and code enforcement departments with the city of Ypsilanti. I've held that position for a year, and then I was also in that position for 9 years.
Okay, and are you familiar with the properties that we're dealing with today, the Arbor One West, North?
Yes,
Okay. What is your background dealing with those properties in particular?
So when I was employed with the city previously, I was coordinating the inspections and the head of the building department, direct head of the building department during the inspections in 2022. And then also in 2019, Zach, prior to that. And then I've been coordinating the inspections and the enforcements under the help of Jerry Dunham, the building department manager and building official for the city.
And have you like personally visited these units?
Yes.
Okay. And would you say that you have a sense of what they've been like over time?
Yes.
Okay. So you've been in court, you're familiar that there's been several court orders, and we're here today specifically on a show cause hearing, claiming that the plaintiffs failed to comply with the court order to do specific things to specific units. Are you familiar with that order?
Yes.
Okay. Are you prepared to talk about any of the units that were the subject of that order?
And I believe in mid-February, Judge Simpson had asked me to do an inspection of all of the units. In February, after the court order was issued, and so I conducted a inspection of all but 2 of those units. I'm concerned why those 2 were not inspected. Over 4 days, it was definitely a challenge to get into the properties due to lack of notice and due to lockouts. So, but we were able to inspect all but 2 of the units.
Okay.
We had also inspected after that several units.
Mhm.
The units that were locked out. So we do have an updated report on those units that I was unable to get into on my February 25th and 28th inspections.
I see. Okay. So the order from February 4th was very specific in the issues that needed to be addressed.
Yes.
Are you aware of any instances that where the work that was listed in the order was not complete?
Yes, there was very little work that was done in between when the order was issued and my inspection. I want to say one building had corrected, one unit had the issues corrected. Not all the issues the city had pointed out, but the issues that were listed in the judge's order, and that was 720 Clark Road, Unit 107. The rest of the units we saw, while some of the work had been started, it was not done in a shipment manner, and the work would need to be redone.
Can you explain what that means?
Yeah. So when you go in and remove a ceiling fan and then you re-drywall above that, the work has to be done in a professional manner as per the manufacturer specifications. And we observed the drywall work was not done correctly, the caulking work was not done correctly, and some of the mold was not remediated.
And what does that really mean? Like, why does it matter?
So when you go in and change a vent fan, if there's mold or water saturation, the drywall will never actually have the correct type separation. It will act as it should when you just paint over wet drywall.
Okay. So, Your Honor, would you like us to go through each individual unit? What would you prefer? If that.
If you want to go through each unit, let's go
Okay.
through each unit.
The first one on the order is, or you mentioned already 720 unit 107. Would that be a good way to go through these? Okay. Well, let's move on to 720 108. The order specifically says heating, water damage, mold, broken windows.
Correct.
Can you tell me whether any of that work was complete and when you inspected that property?
We inspected it on February 27th, 2025. And in that report, we did observe mold and water damage present in it. Then we also did a further inspection in April 2nd, and we saw no change to the work that had been done, and we noted workmanship issues. So still serious issues with the drywall.
Okay.
Specifically on top.
Okay. And you have those records available?
Yeah, I actually have a record of all the reports. Reports that I can look at for the tenant.
Okay, let's hold off on those just for a moment. Actually, I mean, maybe we should, is it okay, Your Honor, if I approach maybe
Yeah.
one for? Is there also?
Yeah. Do anything more than just the court order. These are the city's
And are these the reports for all of the units that are in litigation, or what are they?
They are the reports for all of the buildings that are before Judge Simpson right now. Not all the buildings on Arbor One, this is just the buildings that are part of
Mhm.
this case.
Okay, and are you familiar with all of these records?
Yes.
Your Honor, I'd like to ask that these be admitted as evidence, exhibit. I think it's probably B at this point. I realize that we haven't had a chance to go through the records, and counsel for plaintiff hasn't either, but.
They have a mail to the property manager.
Right, so they should have been in their possession at some point, right? And they are business records, Your Honor. Or city records.
Response.
I guess I'm a little confused as to the process today. I frankly, out of the show cause was pertaining to these cases before the court.
Correct.
And as of today, or as of last week, if not before that, every single one of the lieutenants that was the subject matter of this court has been relocated in one way or another. Everyone is either in the villas, has gone to a different complex, or is hoteled. There's not one single tenant that's left in a unit that is not up to snuff.
Yeah.
That being said,
Hold on. Stop. Stop. You're out if I hear it again. Go ahead, Mr. Freeman.
that being said, the work on those tenants' units has proceeded to conclusion. So even though they've been relocated, the property manager has redone those units, and they would be suitable for relocation, relocation if they were inspected at this point. So not only has,
What are you telling me that
what I'm telling you is, I'm sorry.
go on.
Well, what I'm saying is that Mr. Myers is talking about what his inspection in February of 25, and okay, there was work that needed to be done, but it's been done. And, you know, I think that as far as the show cause is concerned, Arbor One and Arbor One West they've showed up and done the work. And I don't know why we're rehashing what was going on in February, because we've relocated everybody and done work.
May I respond, Your Honor? The violations of the order are the order that was from February. So we're showing that there's a pattern of violating the court's orders. And as you heard a moment ago, the city's prepared to testify as to the current conditions as of April. So I believe that you will hear testimony, Your Honor, that they're not all in complete condition, to the extent that the court wants to consider that. We appreciate that many people have been relocated, but this is a show cause hearing about whether or not they've complied with the court's order.
Well, I guess, Mr. Friedman, the first thing I'd have to ask, because we ran into this problem at the last hearings, and have indeed all of the individuals been relocated? Because that was a problem where it was represented to the court that they had been relocated, and then we found out that they had not been relocated. Well, certain people had not been.
I could provide sworn testimony that they've been relocated.
That everybody okay. So then the question, go ahead.
I think, Your Honor, there's one tenant at least who does not have an active case, but was the subject of the court's order, who has not been relocated. So he was included in the court's most recent order. And I believe he will testify that he has not been relocated yet, just for the record.
He's not a part of this case.
I don't know how the court would like to treat that situation. It is unusual,
Well,
I admit, but he was part of the order.
Okay. Let me move past that just a moment. Then I guess the second point that Mr. Friedman is making is that the testimony I'm hearing, or there seems to be a dispute, maybe, maybe not, that there were repairs to the subject and that all of these units are now, well, I don't know that one could say they're in compliance because there's no CO, but that the work was complete. That's what you're indicating to me, Mr. Friedman.
Correct.
And Ms. Maskell, you're indicating that that's not, or are you?
Well, Your Honor, plaintiff has provided access to some of their records. And I looked at this yesterday, the most recent documents. I printed it off, so it wasn't something that they provided to me directly, but it was part of their records. And I believe it was updated in April. And there's a number of instances where people have been moved and it's marked as complete, but it doesn't look that the work was completed. I think maybe it's complete because no one's living there. So, I mean, I didn't
Well,
obviously.
I
create
guess
this
I don't know what
document.
that they're marking it as complete because there's no longer anyone residing in the unit, or that the work was actually done, irrespective of whether or not there's somebody in the unit.
I believe, I don't know. I don't want to speak for them, Your Honor, certainly. But it looks to me that there's at least some instances where some of the work was done, but it's not 100% done.
All right.
I mean, I wasn't prepared to take testimony about that because no one's, we're talking about prior orders and whether they're violated and no one's living there, apparently.
Let me ask this. When was of the subject matter units, when was the last time they were inspected?
It depends on the building, but I believe April 8th was the last time, but we also have our records of permits that have been pulled and no building permit, and any of these units have been final, which means the work is not complete. There are some plumbing and mechanical.
There are, or there are
There
not?
are some plumbing, mechanical, and building permits that have been final, but the overall building permits have to be final to actually.
Okay.
We're also having a
Greater than average, sir.
So for all of our inspections, we do it at a 5% rate. All inspections, this one's about a 9% rate.
So sometimes it feels like I'm going in a circle, but the last time that we were here, part of the reason that one lease was contemplating or had not been done was because the required permits for the work had not been pulled and or approved. So that the work, at least in theory, couldn't have been done. Is that what is happening at this point, Mr. Meyer?
Yeah, so I have for every one of these units, every permit that's been pulled on these units, whether or not it's issued or final.
So I guess, Mr. Friedman, if there's certain work that needs to be completed, and that in order to complete the work, one needs the permit to do, and the permit hasn't been pulled and completed, then how would I say that the work has been done?
Well, first of all, Your Honor, I don't believe we're in a situation where the permits haven't been pulled that needed to be pulled for these particular jobs, for these particular tenants and these particular units. So I believe the permits have been pulled. They may not all have been finalized, but that doesn't mean the work wasn't done. We're kind of wordsmithing a little bit here this morning when he says that the work wasn't completed because the permit hasn't been final inspection. That doesn't mean the work wasn't done. But
Well, let's back up then and get away from sort of the wordsmithing. Have the permits, the last time that we were here, part of the issue was the permits had not been pulled.
well, today,
And
we pulled over 400 permits, vast majority of which have been final.
would that be about accurate?
Not according to the city.
Pardon?
Not according to the city's record.
$391.
Okay, well, that's about 400. I get that, but I get,
My record 274.
pardon?
My record 274.
Okay. I feel like I'm in Washington. We can't even agree on the facts. What would be, where are you getting your 391?
Property
Pardon?
manager.
Okay. We can all at least agree that if the work that needs to be done would require a permit and the permit hasn't been pulled, whether or not it's final in terms of the final inspection, then the work, if the permit was not pulled, the work can't be deemed completed. We can all at least agree on that, right? So also to make sure that we're talking about the same thing, the 391 are permits that have been pulled through the city.
I don't believe they're all city. I think some of them are on the other side of the street.
Okay, that may be our discrepancy. So some of these permits were pulled for the villas in the township.
I believe so. And
Do we know okay, so the numbers may indeed agree if I take those out, right?
I don't agree, but
You don't agree with what?
no, I think there's more than 174 pulled for the city.
Okay, but there's a difference if I have 391 and 174, and if I have 174 and 180. And what I'm trying to get at is how many of those permits, in terms of the number that you've given me, have been pulled by or were pulled in the township as opposed to being pulled in the city?
I can't give you that answer off the top of my head. I can just tell you that they've gotten 120 COCs in the township in the last couple of months.
In the township.
In order to get, and that is how we were able to relocate as many people as we did into the villas. It's because those are all certified units.
Okay, I understand that, but I'm working on the Ipsy side of the road. And I'm trying to figure out how many permits were pulled of that. Well, however you want to look at it, how many of the 391 are permits for the villas as opposed to how many of those are permits for Arbor One West?
And I don't have that number. I don't have.
So let me ask this, Mr. Meyer. If I take your number, the 174, I think you said permits. If all of those permits were pulled, the work done, and then I realize they haven't been finalized, but if they were finalized, would that overall have satisfied the repairs that would have been needed to these units?
So I would put in there that the work that was in the court order was compliant.
Pardon?
I would put in my notes that the work that the court had ordered would have been. But I have 13 units that no permits have been pulled of all of these, so, and probably about 4 more where it's just an electrical permit, which would require also building permits. And this is as of yesterday.
As of yesterday.
Yes.
So, Mr. Friedman, do you know anything about those 13 units that where there's no permits that have been pulled?
Other than the prospect that the work that needed to be done didn't need to be permitted, no. Not everything that had to be repaired or whatever has to be.
No, but the question that I asked is, maybe I'll clarify. Mr. Mayor, the 13 units that you talk about, the work that needed to be completed would require permits.
Yes.
And you're indicating to the court that those permits for those 13 units had not been pulled.
Correct. We go to those specifically or what we observed.
Yeah, hold on. We may do that. And you don't know anything about those, Mr. Freeman. You or your client don't.
I am not blissfully ignorant, I'm ignorant.
Yeah, I don't know. Okay. So those 13 units, as we talk about those 13 units, you don't know what those, which units those are, or do you?
I just know that everybody's been relocated.
I know after some effort, we've gotten at least to that point.
Your Honor, I actually think that's not correct. Well, maybe it is. I'm sorry. I'll retract that statement. I do know that at least one tenant that I spoke with this morning has continuing issues with her unit, and she's got a hotel through Wednesday. That may be extended today pursuant to the court's order. We'll see.
Well, I thought we took care of that issue regarding the hotel and the extension. I thought we took care of how that's to be handled at the last hearing we were at.
We addressed it, Your Honor.
All right. So the other. So of those units, is there a reason why the city hasn't done a final inspection on those units?
We've not been scheduled.
Okay, well, who would do the scheduling? Okay.
We can't issue, we can't do an inspection until we are called out to do an inspection. And sometimes a lot of this work requires a rough inspection and a final inspection. We also have observed and we've asked the people pulling the permit, so they're actually not adequately stating the costs of the work being done, because building permits are based on the cost. And so in a lot of, in the vast majority of the cases, they're claiming the work to be done is $500 to $1,000. And the work is expanding and they're required to update their permit and they're not doing that. So some of these permits are getting suspended for not doing that.
Okay, but I mean, the reality is they're putting that cost on there so that they don't necessarily have to pay a whole lot of money,
Correct.
right? I mean, okay. So on those units, that claim that, why hasn't a final inspection been called for then?
On a number of units, Your Honor, we have asked them to come out and inspect. We have 2 buildings we believe are ready to be recertified, and the city has refused to do the final inspections. They're claiming that we have to pay a bunch of fines from basically $600 per unit, which comes to about
Or,
for condemnation, I guess. So they want about over $250,000 from us in order to come and re-inspect.
for 2 buildings?
No, they won't re-inspect, period, until we pay the $274,000 that they want.
That is,
Okay.
so the property manager has asked the city to reschedule an inspection schedule for June. We did reschedule an inspection in March. When we went out there, none of the work was done. Majority of the work was not done. And so they were asking for us to come in especially to do an additional inspection and reschedule a bunch of other people's inspections. And we said, there has to be some good faith in doing that. As far as final inspections as it relates to building permits, we've never predicated any sort of fee payment outside of paying for your permits to come do the final inspections on these direct units. This was to do an entire building re-inspection that is already scheduled for July 8th. And so they wanted us to push that up and reschedule other people's inspections. And so we said, at this point, until all of your permits are pulled for this building to get it done, there's no point in us rescheduling inspections that are going to fail.
We have 2 buildings that are ready to go to get people back in, get people rehoused. And they are ready, they should be ready for finals in the week to 2 weeks.
Which 2 buildings are those?
720 Green and 721 Clark.
720 Green. And which one?
721 West Clark.
We still have building permits that have not been pulled or suspended. Well, we'll go with buildings. We'll work that this year.
Okay, so is the landlord aware, or the owner aware of the permits that need to be pulled?
The landlord has pushed back on a lot of the permits that need to be pulled, saying they do not need them for drywall repair and for electrical repair. And we have indicated to the property manager, who has agreed with us, that they do need to pull those permits, but the landlord is not being cooperative.
So, okay. Let's just deal with 720 Green and 721 West Clark. Mary, you're indicating that there are permits that would need to be pulled to complete the work that was outstanding on those units.
Correct.
Mr. Friedman, you're indicating that all of the permits necessary to repair those units have been pulled and that they're ready for the inspection.
There's obviously is a disagreement, but in the 20 years that this property manager.
Obviously, what disagreement? Because I don't.
That what permits are required or necessary. We believe that the ones that have been pulled. There is apparently a disagreement as to what is required. There is clearly, in this particular set of circumstances with these units, these buildings, clearly permits are being required that have not traditionally ever been required by.
Such as?
Your Honor, I have to object. He's
Drywall repairs.
not offering actual testimony from anyone, and
He's trying to answer the court's inquiry. So, I mean, so go ahead. I'm sorry.
I.e. drywall repairs. The disputes are numerous because the fly specking that's been taken, that the city has taken with respect to requiring permits has become onerous, and it's very expensive. It's not these are not $50 permits. And so it's becoming almost a money grab, not almost, a money grab by the city to require all of these permits for these small repairs that have not traditionally been required.
Okay, so what you're telling me is that then you disagree with the fact that I need a permit, but so since we didn't need the permit, we went ahead and did the work.
In some cases, I think that's correct.
Well, let's just deal with 720 and 721. It seems to me what you're telling me is that where we disagreed with the city for the need for a permit, we went in and did the work because we didn't believe that a permit was required.
Clarification. We were asked for the inspections to take place in a couple of weeks because we do still have to finish a few things, which would be permit required. So we've not done pulling permits for these last couple of things, these last few things.
Okay. Say that to me again. Where I was before I asked the last question was you said that the work had been completed and that they're ready to be inspected.
I did say in a couple of weeks. There's some final things that need to be done, and some of them will require permits. But part of the inspection process, as you know, just probably better than I do, is that sometimes you call for your inspection, and they come out and they say, okay, you've got your 90%, your 95%. These are the 6 ticked items that you need to finish to get your final. And so to some extent, you're asking for the inspection so that you can A, pass, or B, be given us a list of things to complete and get re-inspected. That's where I think we are with 720 and 721.
So what you're saying, let me just rephrase it. We need them to come out and do the inspection so we know what needs to be done so that we can do it and then get the final inspection.
And we think we're close anyway. Yes.
And the city won't do that because
So, number one, there's a lot of time mitigation. However, with these buildings, we went out and inspected with 2 property project managers and indicated all of the issues we have that this was done end of March. Walked through every property, went through everything, which was a pretty, I mean, the 2 inspections are looking at like 30 pages of still things that need to be done. If we were close on these, it would probably be less than half of that, but there are 24 units per building. We're still seeing, and which we continue to see in all these units, a lot of lack of smoke detectors, a lot of units under construction without permits, some have permits, bat fans still not working, that the ceiling is repaired, without permits being pulled, or permits have just been pulled. And so with our report, we do get into some doors and some flooring issue, which are property maintenance issues, but we do have, while we do have a lot of units under construction, we don't dispute that. We still are writing out letters to ensure that the boiler and the buildings are working. We've had a lot of problems with the heat when it's building wide heat and the fins being damaged and covers missing. And we're waiting on some letters from a boiler saying that the boiler will work properly. We're still seeing leaks in units. We're still seeing ceilings in disrepair. And this is the 2 buildings they are speaking of. And so I'm not saying they haven't come a long way. They have. But no building permit has been final. There's still a lot of outstanding plumbing and electrical permits out there.
But it seems to me that with reference to those 2 buildings and the units that would be with this court, what the landlord's asking is for and correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Freeman, They're asking for an inspection to basically give us our checklist of what else we need to do. And then we want to complete that.
Yes, and I believe that I'm looking at the inspections that the city's provided, and the last one was March 25th.
So this building was scheduled for April. They asked us to push it up because they indicated the building was done. When we did that, we gave them the checklist of what needed to be done prior to us coming back up.
Got it.
The checklist they're looking for is right here.
And the checklist, so are you indicating that's been completed? The March 25th, I think you said?
Could Attorney Deputy Legion Gordon speak? She's been following the code enforcement and permit process throughout this on behalf of the city.
On behalf of the landlord.
Good morning, Your Honor. So I'm
So
looking.
I guess the answer is yes, go ahead.
So looking at these two documents that Mr. Mars provided, 720 Green and 720 Clark.
Hold on, counsel. Need a name and P number.
Oh, Deputy Gordon Lehman, P 83909.
Thank you.
But it's okay. Looking at these two documents, the one from 720 Green on February 25th. So almost 2 months ago, and the one for 720 is from almost 2 months ago. So although they gave us this checklist, the landlord's contention is that they have worked through this checklist. So we're asking for them to move up the CFC reinspection. It's currently scheduled for, I believe, June 6th or 9th? 15th. And so the request has been made to move it up to no later than, I believe, May 5th. Because we believe that at that point, these buildings will be ready, the permits, if any, will be pulled. From my understanding, there's finalizing some of the permits with regards to the cost and getting them final. But if the goal here is to get these tenants into nice, new, beautiful buildings that have CFCs.
I don't know that that's the goal, but go ahead.
I mean, that's been the position from my understanding, the city is to get these tenants in buildings that have CFCs. You know, we can't find a reason why, you know, getting them out there to do these inspections when they're at the property almost every day anyway, would be unreasonable. The goal is to get.
So why won't the city go out and just inspect or set the appointment
So.
for 720 and 721?
So first off, as the Mr. Freeman did know, there's substantial costs that the owner has not paid for any of the inspections that we've done out there at this point. And so we do need to see these come in. On top of that, because there's a cost to run, like building permit has to fund itself by state law. And so because they're not paying any of the fees for these inspections, that is concern number one. Concern number two is the time aspect. And just to be clear, while the inspection notice does indicate February 2025, when we were out there on April 2nd to do the inspection of 720 Green, no work had been done from February 25th. Once again, we pulled this building up already to do the work. And until we see the permits pulled and final, there's, in the city's position, going out and rescheduling everyone's schedule to do an inspection where permits aren't pulled yet is a concern that we have. Because that would be, it's a lot of time and manpower to go into these buildings and do inspections, 24 units or now 48 units. That takes about a day. And we already have inspections scheduled daily until then.
So why haven't the permits been pulled yet?
It's my.
I'm just saying 720 and 721. Let's just deal with those.
I mean, it's my understanding that there have been permits pulled, and right now there's been dealing with issues of financial aspect of it, finalizing certain permits. And again, we're asking for the reinspection to be moved earlier, which is not today.
Okay, but what I'm saying is, and correct me, Mr. Myers, if I'm incorrect in this. They would do that if they saw certain things. They'd move the inspection up. One would be the pulling of the permits. right? That's one thing.
Yes.
All right, okay. And then there's this other financial piece, which figure out at some point, but my question on the permits, if that's one criteria, why can't that be done prior to them scheduling?
The information that we have is that it's been the financial aspect. You know, this is the first time I'm hearing from Mr. Myers that there's an issue where.
All right, counsel, what do you mean by financial aspect?
Pay these fines and we will come out at that point, as opposed to.
Fines or the permits?
Or fines. Pay this money owed to the city, and we will consider moving the.
Okay, let me ask, okay, I hear you. So is there a way regarding whatever these other costs to attribute a certain portion of that to these buildings?
The permits are the number one concern we have, that we're having.
Not my question.
Yeah.
I need an answer to my question. Because what council's indicating to me is that there are these fines and other costs outside of the permits, right?
Right.
And what I'm saying, how many buildings are out there? 10, was it?
At the property 18.
Okay, so whatever that big figure is there a way of taking 1/19 and 1/18 per building at this point, saying, or 2/18, or coming up with some figure that this is what would need to be paid at this point, and then we can set the inspection?
We are willing to work under what the court would like us to do. We are willing to talk to them. Our number one concern is getting the permits pulled, and I know that you've already said that. As far as the fees go, no building can have any fees owed before a permit certificate is issued. And so, because we have done many inspections out there and not received any funding, any of the money for those inspections, that would have to be paid at least, but
At least what?
at least the money for all the inspections and the outstanding fines for occupying with a certificate prior to a reinspection.
All right, so that I'm clear, at least in terms of what you said. They would need to pay for the permits to do the work. And then whatever fees or these other costs for 720 and 721 would need to be paid.
We would prefer actually all of the fines be paid, but I understand what you're saying.
Well, then can somebody answer my question? If everybody understands what I'm saying, sometimes I talk too like complicated. All I'm trying to say is if there are 18, 19 buildings, there would be a number of different ways of doing that. Either you can attribute it to each building and I can say, this is what's coming from this building. Or I can just say, I'm not sure what's coming from the building, but some of it's in the aggregate, some of it's this. And then I take that big number and I just divide it by 18.
We can attribute it to each building. We can.
Okay,
Like I
so
said, I
do
would
they
have to-
know how much these other fees and fines and costs are for 720 and 721?
I would have to say yes. Because they get all the same.
Okay, so, okay, I know what you're gonna say. Counsel?
We don't have that exact number. It could be total. At this point, we've just been instructed.
I could say that it might just simply be simpler to do 2/18 to get it done.
I think I said that like 15 minutes ago.
You did, didn't you?
It's also our.
God, it's hard being brilliant like me. But anyway, go ahead, Raj.
It's also our understanding, Your Honor, that kind of breakdown information has been requested from the city manager as of last week, and the property manager was told that they would get back to them. So
Of what type of breakdown?
regarding the fines associated with the buildings.
With each building? Or overall?
So the request was everything broken down per building. And the information we have is that we would get back with you. And we don't have that information as of today.
That is correct. The owner, Judge, just to be very, the owner, or the manager has requested several reports from the city constantly. When they have full access to all the information we have online. And so while our staff is very small, and we are trying to do a lot with a little, it does take time for us to run these reports.
Okay, but here's what I'm saying, folks. I realize all of this is difficult. All of these folks that have had to move, there's been a difficulty. And painful for everyone. If you give me the numbers, I'll do the math. I'm not gonna say it's gonna be right on the other end, but I'll do the math. That's why I became a lawyer, so I didn't have to, but I can add, I think. I'm just saying, can't you come up with a number that's attributable to 720 and 721?
Yes.
How soon, how fast can you come up with that number and give it to them?
I mean,
Okay, so I'm trying to figure out why that takes so long.
because the system that we use has a glitch that is being fixed on this update, and so I cannot run an Excel report. So it would have to be gone through manually, like they could do as well, to add up all of these numbers for all of these buildings. And even with these.
No. I'm just saying for these two buildings.
Yes, no, and I'm just saying, I can assure you, at the end of the week, but realistically, it would be me and who's an audience actually doing this, because once again.
Okay, so hold on. Somewhere. Somewhere there are these, let me just take set for these buildings, for these two. Somewhere there are these fees that are attributable to this building,
Yes.
right? They would be categorized by something that is attributable to 720 or 721, right?
Yes.
Are you telling me those aren't all in one spot?
So the way the city system works is, it is all within a system called BSNA. When they did their April update, it locked us out of running Excel reports. And I asked them to fix that, and we're hoping that fix is done by the second update.
Okay, then if that's the case, then how can I be here saying you guys need to do this and you're requesting two things from them to accomplish this task, but one of them you can't give to them?
So the city has sent them all of the invoices for all of these. So it's not like the city's not sent them the invoices. They received every invoice for all of these inspections and fees. And so because they have received all of the same documentation, they get this paper.
Somebody should be able to give me a number. It's crazy. Doesn't even make any sense to me.
Part of the issue as well is the city is saying that there's late fees associated with some of these. And so that would be something that they would have, but we don't have that number. So we
don't have what number?
Whatever the late fees, the city intends on charging for any of these fines. And so in order to get a proper number regarding what it would take to get any of these buildings or the two buildings, that number would have to come from the city, which is why it was requested from the city.
For God's sakes, folks. Then what's the principal amount without the late fees? How do you not have that number? I mean, you just told me that it's the late fees that cause the problem.
Your Honor, if I understand correctly, it sounds like this is publicly available information, so I don't understand what's preventing
Look,
gathering it.
everybody is just causing a problem, it seems to be here. Because the reality is there's a number somewhere out there. Counsel, I know that you computed a number because you would have had to give that risk assessment to your client. I'm not asking for what you talked about with your client. I'm just saying you have a ballpark figure of what it is. You just told me you're waiting on what those late fees are. It seems everybody is delaying for the purpose of just delaying.
The city has issued 750 violations, so it would involve.
So how long is it gonna take you to add up 750 numbers?
I mean, I believe.
I'm gonna step off the bench. Somebody, and I'm gonna come back and somebody give me a number for these two buildings. I don't care if the two of you come to different numbers, then I'll figure it out. But somebody give me a number for these two buildings, for that part of it. And then in terms of the permits, do you know what the cost of the permits are that you have to do?
Look at that number as well.
Okay, I'm gonna stand in recess. Somebody get me a number.
Different matter.
County of Washington, State of Michigan, is now back in session. Honorable Judge Simpson presides.
You may be seated. Okay. Mr. Meyer, still understand. Do we have a number?
Yes, we have our number.
You're okay. That's fair enough. All right, what is this is for the two buildings.
Yeah, for the two buildings, we have come up with $52,666.
52.
$666.
Okay. Mr. Meyer, how does,
As far as that is a little more than what I actually think it is, but I also agree.
that I didn't expect. Okay, so that 52.6. All right.
And if we could break it down, how we got that number,
Sure.
we have 200. So what we did was we took the total fines and that we tallied, we divided it by 18 and then we multiplied that by 2. So the total fines that we had were
Emily.
They were 474,000.
474,000 for the total fines.
And then we multiplied that by 2, and that's how we got the 52,666. But again, that doesn't include any late fees that the city is spending on assessing. So again, that's.
I got you. And
it's also important to note, Your Honor, that the property management team and the landlord have tried to pay some of these fines. They've submitted checks, and I believe to the tune of $50,000 to the city to try and bring some of this down, but the checks have been rejected and returned because there's been some sort of issue internally with the city where they say that there are late fees assessed, and so they're considering it a partial payment. So again, this late fee issue with the city, we can't calculate that, so we try to pay, it gets rejected, and then the city contends that we've paid nothing and they won't come out and do any inspection. So, you know, that's something that the court should know as well.
Okay. What was your number?
So I had not gotten to all of the enforcement cases yet. I had gotten to the inspections done, which I was at $12,500 for those two buildings for the inspections that has gone out. And then I see, I was trying to passively go through, I see 40 enforcement cases. I want to say probably 36 of them are for, we have 80 total enforcement cases on these two buildings. Not all of them are for this round, so I was looking at, I was trying to come up with the actual enforcement number cases.
Okay.
Right.
But, all right, so let me ask this. the permit fees are gonna be what the permit fees are. So I'm not. I mean, and I get that that can change, but that number is gonna be what that number is to begin with. What, in the simplest manner, how are the late fees derived?
When the invoice is over 30 days, which almost all of these are, there's a 20%
20%?
total. So there's not 20% per month, it's just 120%.
So, correct me if I'm wrong. This 52 becomes 62 or thereabout, 64.
It could, depending on when, yes, for all intents and purposes, yes.
Well, if you're saying that all of them are over 30 days, and that's when the 20% hits, right? Then if they're at 52,666, then I take 20% and that goes on top.
So one of the inspections happened on the 2nd of April, and again on the 2nd of May, then they will not be charged at 20%. Some of these fees might already have the 20% on them. I do want to say that when the checks that we have received in our office for payment of some of these fees, we get a Arbor 1 and a check for $10,000 that is dated for February when we get it in April. And so it is our practice when a check is predated to, and the actual mail is postmarked that day or the day before, it is our policy to return predated checks or post, I forget exactly. It is dated for a month and a half, 2 months earlier.
If I assume and make some adjustment, whatever it is, that I take I'm going to take, if I take their number, well, let me ask this before I do anything. Was it your understanding of that it was the 20% council, or what were you?
I was not aware. I just know that there were late fees that were to be assessed by the city, and we didn't know what that number was. So.
Is that because of its rolling nature, or, I mean,
I think
or did you, let me ask it this way. Did you know it was 20%?
I didn't know it was 20%.
Okay. I almost want to ask why, but don't answer that. Did you tell them it was 20%?
It's been 20% for over the past 10 years, probably 20 years.
Okay, but right, but did they know it was 20%? I mean,
They have never spoke to me about this.
Some of these late fees are coming from the refusal to accept the checks as well, which obviously we take issue with. So it's a variety of things at play here.
okay. So if somebody gave you a check, the date is February, you get the check in April, and the city says we won't take the check.
Well, so there's 18 buildings, and we don't know what buildings they want to apply this $10,000 to, and every building is separated out.
Right, but one could take the check and deposit it and then say to them, how do you want me to apply this?
So we asked that all checks come in, how that check is to be applied.
This speaks to a pattern of the issues that we're having with the city here.
Oh, hold on a second. Hold on a second. I don't know that you want to go there. All right, because I spent 3 years dealing with your client, so there's patterns all over the place here. So okay. So, Mr. Meyer, if the city were to get today a check for 52,666, would they take it? Really? What if I ordered you to take it?
No, well,
I mean,
but no, that, will be done. It is hard to know what people want to be applied to what building, if they do not tell us what building. And if we knew this was to be applied to buildings 721 Clark and 720 Green, that would be helpful, but without knowing the buildings that it needs to be applied to.
52,666. Give me 20%. And where do I get? No, it's fine. I told counsel I don't do math and she still is trying to make me.
$10,533.
$10,533 and how many cents?
20.
All right. So while we sit here in this gridlock, the owners are indicating to me that there are 2 buildings that within the very near future could be inspected, potentially then get COs, and then potentially house some of these individuals. That's what I'm hearing. Am I correct, counsel?
Correct.
All right. So the city is just concerned because they need to make sure this is applied right and everything. And don't know what to apply it to.
Well, and we would make that.
Okay, so here's what I'm gonna do. So let me ask you this just so we have. If I told the owners to take whatever this adds to 53 something and said, you deposit that in the court escrow. If they did that, would you then do the inspections on these 2 buildings?
When all of the building permits have been pulled. Yes.
Okay, I know. But they're going to pull the permit to do the work, right? Am I correct, counsel?
Yes.
And
Okay.
during recess, we got more information on the permits, and for these 2 buildings.
I can't leave you alone for a minute, can I? No, go ahead. What?
For 721 West Clark and 720 Green, Mr. Myers testified about a boiler letter issue, and that could be holding up the process. The boiler letter has been submitted several times by my client. It's been rejected by the city. So that's holding it up, but it's not
Why was it rejected?
there.
Do you know anything about that?
So, our building department manager would be the best one to speak on that. These here.
Okay.
I'm just speaking to what Mr. Myers testified as.
No, I got you. I got you.
And then, we're dealing with issues with permits. No more permits need to be pulled on this building, is the information that I've had.
You had what?
Issues that are right now.
Say that first word again.
No more permits need to be pulled on these 2 buildings. They are dealing with open permits that need to be finalized. And so the disputes regarding those permits are, one, The final inspections have not been scheduled, but again, we're asking for the inspection of the CFC to be moved up. We still have time in between now and 10 to get the final inspection. The permits have been pulled, you just haven't been finalized. So you have to schedule the final inspection with the city. And then lastly, they're dealing with disputes regarding, like Mr. Meyer said, the cost submitted with some of the permits. So, the property management team is submitting the cost saying it's going to cost this much. The city is saying, oh, it should cost more. So they're dealing with those kinds of disputes. But other than that, there are no more permits need to be pulled for these two buildings.
Would the city agree with that they don't need any more permits, but it's going to be the adjustment of the work as well as yeah, I mean,
No, the city would not agree with that. We still are seeing in our inspection report several areas of damaged drywall, and many units that have no permits pulled. I'm looking at 721 Clark Road right now. There are 18 permits pulled, of several ways, but it looks like the vast majority of the building permits, there's still, I believe, 4 or 5 units that haven't even filed, haven't even done that.
okay, do they know what permits you have missing?
So we have in our reports where there is damage to drywall that would need to be replaced.
Okay, but I know, but you're also looking at a list of permits that they pulled.
Yes.
Has there been any discussion whatsoever that you're still missing these permits? And in terms of the work we see that needs to be done, have you told them that?
So when we have talked with the property management in the past, it is never about these 2 buildings specifically outside of when we did the inspections.
Okay. All right, but right now, I'm going to deal with these 2 buildings because that at least is some progress. Because what I'm hearing from the owners is that's something that they can get done and may be done. So if you were to look at your list, could you tell them what permits are missing from your perspective? I realize they might have a very different view of whether or not.
So in my going through this building specifically, 721 Clark, it appears that for unit 102, we have in our report that they have pulled a 1 mechanical permit. It appears in our inspections that the half bathroom ceiling needs to be repaired, require a permit. In unit 101, they have a permit for the drywall in the bathroom ceiling, but in our report, the dining room ceiling also needs to be repaired. So that permit would need to be expanded. For unit 210.
Okay, but you could certainly go through all those. The problem I'm having is they don't know that other than hearing it now.
They have the report that we gave where it talks about repairing.
I know, you told me that. But at some point, you should be able to tell them, these are the permits we see that you need, right?
Yes.
And then if there can be, don't know, but let's say there is agreement that these permits are needed,
Yes.
right? Then they would know what permits they need to pull to make this inspection happen and hopefully get a CO on this bill.
So they asked for that meeting, and what I requested from them is to put it in writing so we can have it all ready, because we
Put
go
what in writing?
put the questions they have, and we would reply with the permits that we felt that they needed in that question. We have yet to get that from the manager.
Okay, so here's the deal. Because I'm here anyway. So apparently I'll be that conduit of getting these things answered, because this makes no sense to me. I understand you want certain things in writing. I understand that they may want certain things in writing, but I just. How many units are in these buildings?
48
48 total.
for both of them.
Total.
24 building, right? So right now there's, in my mind, there's an opportunity within the very near future to have 48 units back online that can house people. That, folks, that's how I'm looking at this. I've got people staying in hotels and I think it's necessary. I've got all of these folks all around displaced. And I've got an opportunity to get 48 units back online. And so if everybody has to sit here all day, we're going to find a way to get a mechanism by which that's going to happen, because it's going to benefit everybody. It's going to benefit the owners. It's going to benefit the city if those 48 units come back online. Some of this stuff that I'm hearing trying to use a kind word that my mother might appreciate, because the ones that are immediately coming, she would not. But a lot of this is petty. I just need to know what permits the city needs, sees these owners as having to get. And then we can make, they can either agree to it, or if I have to make a decision on it, I'll make a decision. And then there is at least a clear road by which that can happen. I at least have the fees and what may be the penalty and in terms of that amount. But now we've got to narrow down these permits. What were you going to say? No, see, I'm going to tell you what, Council. You got too much of a towel. Like, you look at me, you kind of smile, and then something's going to come out that's going to throw my plan all through everywhere. I'm just letting you know what I think about you. Go ahead.
I will say something.
If I insist, very, very good. Go ahead.
We welcome the idea of a list from the city. I think a part of the issue on our end as well is that we've been dealing with some peculiar requests for permits. We're dealing with fixing a bath fixture and plumbing fixture and electrical filters, where if you did that at your own home, you wouldn't have to pull a permit for that.
Because it's my own home. That's why. But this isn't. So, no, I hear you. And I don't live in the city, so.
And some of these are common things that, the maintenance staff on the grounds can, so it's,
I know. I hear you. And that, I think, gets into the basic dispute that Mr. Friedman brought up as to these are things that customarily would not require a permit. Okay. I will also tell you, however, so that you know from my perspective where some of this comes from. Well, I'm not going to say that. I'll just leave it. So I get that, but I can't even get to the point of trying to resolve any of that if I don't know what permits are being requested and which ones you would then see as ones that aren't necessary. I've got to have a I gotta have or something to look at to say, okay, you're right, I don't know why a permit's necessary. Okay, so, Mr. Friedman, I am gonna take a recess, that is a scheduled recess, how long will we? In that for? Ask Dan real quick, because I know Mr. Friedman has to go. Mr. Friedman, do you, and I know your council record, do you mind if I? Okay, because I want, legal services is here, they have an interest in trying to get at least these 48 online and everything. And I'd like to try to deal with the parties to try to see if we can at least get some progress on that issue. So you don't have a problem if you're not here.
Do not.
Why are you looking so happy about it? No, I'm kidding. What'd you say?
I was just gonna suggest it.
Okay, all right. So I'm gonna stand and read. Did she give you? Can you find out for me what we scheduled this, built this in? Just ask her what time breaking. One, okay. So we'll read ending at 10:30 and till 1. Get her out here. I don't think that's right. So I guess it is 1 o'clock and then we'll come back. But in the interim, while we'll be off the record, well, I'm going to recess to that time, but we're going to be working on trying to get this part done. And then whatever we have to do, okay?
Scheduled for this afternoon. Do we have a time for that set?
Oh, God, yes. I mean, yes, I meant, yes, there are. So what I've done is these cases are the summary proceedings. They're then what I'm calling the affirmative complaints that have been filed. And I was looking at dealing with that in the afternoon. I thought mixing them at this point would not have been a good idea. Okay. All right. So here's what we're going to do in the interim. How long will it take you to come up with what permits you see for these 2 buildings, Mr. Moore?
I think we can do it by. Sorry, can I ask?
Sure. You're looking.
Our building permit. I might not be the one from village.
Yeah, hour or so.
All right. Do that. Do you have a list of those building permits? Well, you've said there are building permits. You just need to find all of them, right?
Correct, so.
And that's where you guys are.
They need to be final, or there's the discrepancy in the amount that was submitted with it. But as Mr. Myers mentioned, the BSNA website is down. So it's not.
Of course it is.
Well.
No, okay. So there are certain things you can't see right now.
Typically, I would be able to go in there and see the permits that have been pulled, but I mean, maybe it's the room, but it's not pulling up for me right now, but I will try during the.
Why she go there? Maybe it's over about your courtroom, Judge. Well, no, you're in trouble. All right. So, let's see if we can get you access to that. or if it is something here, who knows? So that we can at least see what's been pulled and everything. All right, so
It sounds like Mr. Dunn was able to get on.
Okay.
I'm able to access
you're able to access it? Okay.
Maybe
the
it's-
public side.
I'll keep trying, I'm not sure, but it's literally recovering.
Couldn't be the user. Okay. I'm just saying, all right. So court will stand in recess, but the parties don't go too far because I may want to talk with each side as we kind of get through this process, but get a list, get your list, and if you know the ones where you've been told that there is a dispute regarding the amount on it, then let's mark those and try to figure out those also. All right? Court of standing recess.
This is doing you right here. Doing you right there. Oh, what the hell is it? All right. 14A District Court of the County of Washington, State of Michigan, and I, the Honorable Judge, yes, I accept the advice.
You may be seated. All right. Where are my hand files? What's my first one in that one? Is it? What's the number? I think 1404. Maybe the first one. I forget. Court does call the cases of Arbor One and Arbor One West versus Rico McGuire et al. All of the 36 cases in that regard. I'll also at this time call the case of Annie Marie Griffin versus VIP River Woods LLC, doing business as Arbor One Apartments and Beale Properties LLC. Council, state your appearances.
Let's be fine.
Afternoon, Deputy Gordon Lehman, as well for everything.
Your Honor, we have been assisting these tenants, so I believe my name might be attached to this one.
Pardon?
On behalf of Ms. Griffin. Mr. Melly.
Saying, what did you say?
Oh, we assisted several of the tenants in filing, and my name is attached to several of them. And I don't know for sure if this is one of them, but I believe that it is. Okay.
Yes. And then, well, we're gonna have to sort that out in a moment. Go ahead, Council. Did you want to put your appearance on?
Just for the record, the last, but you're calling the affirmative cases, the
Yes.
10 new cases, Travis Gagne, on behalf of Beale Properties LLC.
All right, very good. Okay, let's first of all go back to the summary proceeding cases. Let's go there because we were trying to work out some things. And I guess the first thing I would ask is, did we get to the point of figuring out anything regarding the permits on 720 and 721?
It sounds like yes.
I think everybody has their own list at this point. We have not discussed the list with each other yet. That's the extent of my knowledge at this point.
Okay, so let me just ask so that I can know how I'm going to conduct myself in the future. And I realize there's other circuit court litigation that may be going on. But are the parties having an issue just in terms of these simple things like engaging with each other? Wow, take a breath and then answer, but okay. Yes. Okay, so, I mean, and if the court has intervened so that the parties communicate with each other, I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna, because it doesn't, some of these things don't make any sense. And again, the primary objective, certainly on these cases, is having units that are safe for these individuals to reside in. My understanding is that 720 and 721 are close. I don't know that for sure, but what's been represented. And that there are these certain barriers, and I think we just need to get through those barriers. Let that inspection part take place, let 720 and 721. If they're going to proceed forth, let them proceed forth, and let's try to get these 48 units back online. That's the court's perspective. So everybody should probably govern themselves accordingly, but if I've got to be the one to help you govern yourselves, then I'll do that. All right. So we had the how many permits? Let me ask the city, how many more, if you could come up to the podium here at least, how many more permits are we looking at from the city's perspective for those 2 units?
So I'm on 721 Clark. It appears that unit 102, 103, 105, 107, 206, 302, 303, 304, 306, and 308 all need permits.
Okay.
Then for 720 Green, units 104, 301, 306, and then the common elements for the boiler room and the storage room would need permits.
All right. And the boiler and storage room aren't an issue in 721, or were you saying it was covered?
No, so 721, all of the common element areas permits have been pulled.
But not for 720.
720 Green, that is correct. We still need permits for the boiler room and the storage.
Can I ask if Mr. Myers, if his list for 721 again?
102, we see the need for a building permit and an electrical permit. 103, building permit. 104, 105, electrical permit. 107, building permit. 206, mechanical and electric permit. I do speak fast, so I can slow down.
Yes.
Sorry. Let me know when you're ready.
Okay. I'm good after 206.
I'm not, can you repeat 206? Sorry.
206, we need mechanical and electrical permits. We need 302 building permit. 303 building permit. 304 building permit. 306. Sorry, I'm probably going a little fast again.
306.
306 building permit, mechanical permit, and electrical permit. And 308 electrical permit.
What did you need for 105?
105 needs an electrical permit,
And 103?
building permit. Then we also need all the permits to actually have their, in some cases, rough inspections, in some cases, final inspections.
Got it.
And do you want me to go through 720?
Yes.
104 needs a building permit. 301 needs a building permit. 306 needs a plumbing permit. And then the common rooms, we need a building permit for the boiler room and the storage room. And those will need to go through plan review.
Plan review, how long is that going to?
Can take up to 10 days. We can try to rush as much as we can. But for commercial buildings, those are typically sent out to a contractor to do.
Okay, is that similar to the list you had or?
So we have compiled a list of all of the permits that have been pulled
Gotcha,
for each of 2 buildings.
gotcha.
So once we have an understanding of the city's contention of what needs to be pulled, we can, I guess, compare that list, and see and make sure that there's no discrepancies on what they believe needs to be pulled. But we have a list showing that 35 permits have been pulled for 723 and 49 have been pulled for 721 Clark. So those are the numbers that we came up with based on the BSNA website that lists all of them.
From that website, because Mr. Myers broke it down by unit. From that website, are we going to be able to tell what units are there?
For the most part, yes. Sometimes when they pull a permit not for the unit, which most of the permits are pulled by unit, you have to go into some of the detail. But
Okay,
for the most part, each permit is assigned to each unit.
got it.
So it depends on how the permit was pulled.
So just on a brief scan, and I realize you haven't had a chance to go through it. I mean, does it look like the list match, don't match, are close?
Right, so just of the brief scan of 721 for unit 102, 105, 206, 303, and 306, we have that permits have been pulled for those units. So I think we would have to look at exactly what the city is saying the permit is being used for. If there's understanding that there's more work that needs to be done, and a permit needs to be pulled for, and I think that's the discussion we need to have. But for some of these, we're seeing permits are pulled. So I guess that's what the
But are they the permit and, well, let me ask this, are they the type of permit that would need to be pulled?
I have a list in front of me
Okay,
of all the permits pulled. And so for 102, we have a mechanical and electrical permit for the bath fan, but not the drywall permit when you actually install a new bath fan. So that's where 2 permits were pulled, but the drywall permit was not done. And that's why we indicated that a building permit would be needed. And I do have an electrical permit in there due to some of the other electrical needs in the unit, not for the bath fan.
I think it would be helpful as well, just as Mr. Myers said just now, as he said, okay, we need a building permit, and he just said we need it for drywall. So, you know, him telling us that we need a building permit or something, I think that could apply for a variety of different things. So telling us
correct.
what we need a permit for would be helpful. If you say we need a building permit for drywall, we'll do that, as opposed to kind of leaving us to guess as to what exactly their intent is. And trying to be clear, which hopefully clear. So
No, I got it. That makes some sense. To the court. All right. So what I'm gonna do is everybody hold on to that. I'm gonna stop Mr. Myers' testimony at this point because I want to focus on these 2 buildings right now to see where we can get with this. Now, let me ask if, I'm saying a big if because I haven't asked this, but if there were about the 63,000 that the landlord would pay over to the city. Okay, let's say that were paid over. Is the city in a position, I guess, number one, to take the monies?
So
And then, go ahead.
no, so just to have further clarification on that, because I spoke to Mr. Dunham on the way. The problem we've had with taking a lump sum check and trying to divide it is we've had complaints from the property manager on dividing it, not how they wanted us to divide it. Because when we get a big check, we divide it how, like, per a building. And so that is why we have asked for a detailed list of what these fees are for, so we can apply it how they want, so then they don't complain later. As far as, I just also want to reiterate that we have had several meetings with the property manager and their staff about what permits would be needed, several. And every time they say, okay, and the permits never actually get pulled. And so this is not the first time we have heard this, but we've also had at least 5 separate meetings talking about the permits needing to be pulled. But if they turned over a check for $60-some thousand to the city for these 2 buildings, we would just ask that if there's money left over, what buildings they would want it applied to after that.
From the standpoint that it gives everybody an incentive to clear up those issues. As to where it gets allocated, everybody has an incentive, including the city, to clear up those issues as opposed to stonewalling. Not that I would ever accuse them of doing that, but I think that it might be helpful if that money was in escrow.
Your thoughts?
Yeah, we want to move this forward as well. I don't know, Mr. Myers' testimony, there's been several meetings. We've asked for meetings. You know, we've been told to put our questions in writing, and, you know, that doesn't seem like it's gonna get us anywhere. Because obviously we don't know what we don't know. So we can't put questions in writing until we get some clarification from the city. So we're not opposed to, you know, the court entering some sort of order where, you know, everybody's got a stake in getting some of these things done. We're not opposed to some sort of order from the court, you know, requiring that the parties sit down and discuss some of these issues. And I think once we're able to do that, a lot of this stuff could be moved along. But
Well, I would, just in listening today, I would love to believe that if I ordered the parties to sit down and to come up with something that would happen. I have this weird feeling, and usually I'm right when I have that feeling, that if the parties were to sit down, there'd be some dispute that would bring this to a screeching halt over something that I'm not sure makes much sense for it to halt over. So, I think I would have that paid into escrow. That way, the city, I think, has some assurance that it would, when Mr. Meyer, you were talking about some, almost sort of some good faith thing. And I'm using those words, but I'm not saying that everybody's not operating in good faith, but I think it's just the money will be there. It won't be released until either the court orders it or the parties can agree how it's going to be placed and what it's for specifically. If it's for the 20% penalty portion, that's it. But as counsel brought up, and I'm not sure what I do with it, but if they submitted a check, but then the check was rejected, should they really be subject to the 20%? You know, it's those kinds of things that I would fear that the parties, once they got to that, aren't going to be able to get past. Because I think each side is going to be locked where they are. Just my opinion, just listening from today, that's what will happen. So just in terms of scheduling wise, if they, again, I'm going to speak in sort of a hypothetical, but if they got this money to us, say tomorrow, they then pull the permits, say by tomorrow, Wednesday, or pay for the permits, pull the permits by the latest Wednesday. what time frame are we looking at that would be needed to accomplish the work or do the inspections, however, or just schedule?
So from our side, it's my understanding that barring one particular issue, which is fire doors on the building, these buildings could be ready for a reinspection by May 6th, except for these fire doors, which have to be manufactured, and 11 of them are a very particular door. That pushes it back to May 19th. So if the city was willing to do something temporary, a temporary CFC pending those doors and come out on the 6th, like we would be open to that. But if they want everything all in all, including those doors, the doors will not be manufactured until the 19th. Not a normal door. My understanding is something that's never really been asked of before, so we gotta get it made. There's 11 of them. So that would be the timeline we would be under.
So,
And again, I think, you know, from the property management team's perspective, they have questions. And, you know, I think today has been some of the most progress we've had in getting some answers to particular things. And while I know that there may be some things that the parties may come to a head on, having answers to specific things of how the city wants work done, what they want done, is only going to allow us to get the one work done. So I would, again, urge the court, if you are inclined to order parties to sit down and flesh out some of these issues beforehand, because they don't want to be fleshing it out on the inspection and saying, oh, this is what we wanted, or this is how we want it. Let's get these things resolved now, early, so when that inspection day comes, we've got a nice building to see no issues. So.
so you're looking at basically the third week in May for everything, including the doors. But here I guess is my issue. The doors have to be made, they then have to be shipped and then installed. Is that date you're giving me? Is that like the order date and then the doors are gonna sit there for a minute while we try to figure out how to get them installed, or?
It sounds like they get here on the 9th. And
On the 9th?
Yes, and then we need to install them within a week. And so like I said, it's 11 doors, there's 5 doors. I don't know with installing a fire door, but you know, the property management team says they need a week to install all of those doors. And that's where we get to.
So that would be the 16th if they get here on the 9th. Let's say they're delayed and it's the 12th, then it would be the 19th.
So that was the day they told us that they could have all of that squared away.
The 19th? Okay, that kind of makes sense, gives them through the weekend on, I get it. Okay. So, and it's anticipated then on the 19th that all work could be done?
That's the plan. All work would be done. Yes, it's meetings on the 19th.
All right, from the city's perspective.
We still have permits that were pulled on February 12th that haven't had an initial rough inspection yet. And so it all depends on how quickly they get the work done and finalize the permits that we have outstanding. And so it's really hard for us to say, you know, yes, we can do this when we are at the whim of them finishing the work, starting the work, calling for a rough inspection, finishing the work, calling for a final inspection, and then we could actually certify the building. That's why it's been important for us, and we have asked them to pull the permits on several different occasions.
Okay, let's do this. They pulled the permits by Wednesday. How soon can the rough inspections be done?
It depends on what unit and when and the schedule. So we looked at about 60 inspections that have to take place, Judge, in between now and when this is all final. Probably a little bit more than that. And so we have 6 inspections a day that our inspectors can do. And so and we inspect 3 days a week.
I don't get that. So they could do 6 a day, so that each inspector then can do 18 a week?
So this is building inspections, very specific building inspections, yes. And Mr. Dunham would be much better to actually answer the details behind that.
So so if it's 18 a week, how many inspections are we looking at having to be done on these 2 buildings?
So we're looking at about 60 inspections. So there's a difference between the building inspection and the rental inspections. The rental inspections, we can do 24 a day. That's different. But the building inspections.
Okay, so hold on. When I do the math, that's no way it's gonna work within that time frame of the 19th. Is this a staffing issue?
No, this is just what we typically, we have been doing a lot of building permits for many, many years. And this has been what we do typically.
Okay, so what do you do atypically?
Once again, Mr. Dunham would be the one to actually.
Come on up. Because this. It's your name?
Jerry Dunham.
All right. And so how soon could we get these inspections? I'm at a loss as to what, I'm not gonna call it a delay, but the timing of this.
As far as, so the city of Ypsilanti uses a third party for trade inspections. They do 6 inspections a day. Is how they do it and schedule them out. I mean, you gotta look at some of these permits were pulled in February, had rough inspections, and probably the work's been done for weeks, but they haven't called for a final inspection. Now it's at the end and they're trying to push it all together.
So what, the 6 per day, where's that come from?
There's a contract with the city of how many they do a day.
So
And typically the city only has 4 or 5 a day of these inspections.
right, but it's what prohibits the city from doing more?
Because these inspectors do inspections all over for different jurisdictions. So that's what they account for in their day that they can do is 6. Sometimes they might be able.
By the city of Ipsy.
What? What was your
I
question?
mean, it's what they're being paid. Whatever they're being paid by the city of Ipsy, they said we'll do 6. Isn't
That's
that really what's happening?
That's what they do is roughly 6 a day. Sometimes you can talk them into more.
They're doing 6 a day because that's what Ipsy's paying for.
No, we don't. No, we'll pay. They get paid per inspection. So if they did 10 inspections, they get paid for 10 inspections.
So
They
what
get paid
limits them to 6?
Because with their schedule, that's what they figured out in their 8-hour day or 10-hour day or wherever they work. They allocate 6 inspections for the city
So
of
nobody's
Ypsilanti.
asked them to do more.
They will on occasion say that they can do more inspections. But it's going to be based on their schedule.
And they're the only ones that do them?
Yes.
Are you capable of doing them yourself?
I could do building inspections, but we're talking about for the trades, electrical, mechanical, plumbing, I cannot do.
I just,
On the building side, if that's where it runs into, I perform, can perform them. It's the trades that which, I don't have how many trade permits needed inspections left on that list.
I mean, the list I have, the majority of them are building permits.
And Mr. Dunham's there every day.
Yeah, so if it's building, it wouldn't be a problem. It would be if it comes down to the trade permits.
Get this scheduled so that by the week ending May 23rd, these two buildings are ready to go back online. How does that happen?
We can meet with the city and we'll establish a schedule to do that. We have no problem with doing that.
And then my question is can it be done? I mean, I'm looking at the limitations that the city has, and I'm trying to figure out, can it be done by May 23rd to get these buildings back online? Anybody from the city?
I would say that there is the potential if the work is done.
So we can schedule some building permits. The permits still needed or different than the inspections still needed?
We don't run the project, Your Honor. So I mean, these permits that were pulled in February that they already called for final inspections because the work is done. We don't control managing the project.
I get that. I mean, but at some point, everybody's sort of sitting there, I mean, and saying, well, whatever. So when can the parties meet to flush this out?
The property management team that are the boots on the ground are available every day at the time. So we will make it convenient to meet whenever it's available for the city.
We meet with them whenever, Your Honor. We met with them last week with Beal Properties, but they did not want to talk about any Arbor One related issues at that time. Only other properties.
You know what?
So, I mean, we're more than willing.
I don't care. Because you guys are gonna have to sit down, you're gonna have to talk. The object to it is gonna be this. I can be a nice guy, but if you want to have to sit down in the room with me, I'll sit down. I'll make the time to sit down. All of these sort of parameters around everything in terms of what can be done, what can't be. This either not giving information or not asking the right all that's got to stop. Just has to. And so
We can meet this Thursday. If the city wants us to throw out a date, this Thursday works, we'll be available anytime.
I'm good with Thursday. I'm good with tomorrow if they want.
can you do it before Thursday? What day?
We can do tomorrow.
You guys make it work tomorrow?
Yeah, make it work, Your Honor.
That's 29. Everything's in. I had one. All right. City and the owners are gonna sit down, go through this in detail tomorrow, the 29th. I need the parties to report back to court at 11 a.m. I could do it Wednesday. What time is my sentencing?
Your sentencing docket starts at 12. You have an 11 a.m. meeting.
Is that oh,
Yeah.
we may have to move that. All right, I want the city and the owners to report back at 10 a.m. on the 30th. And I want a progress report on where you guys have gotten. I'll put everybody on a short leash. We're gonna get this done. It's really as simple as that. How soon could a certified check, I'm just gonna round it off, and I'm just gonna say, I'm not gonna work with pennies and everything, of $62,000. How soon could an escrow check? I would need certified funds to the court. And I don't know how I'm gonna do that. Okay.
Wire.
Okay, we'll just put it on Rico, sorry.
We have it Wednesday at 10 a.m. when we're back here.
All right, certified funds,
Certified funds made out to the court.
yes, right, yeah. In the amount of 62,000 even. All right, building numbers on this again, 721, 720. Okay. And so what I'd like from the parties is a scheduling of how this is all going to occur. Whether it be the rough inspections, whether it be the final ones. I want target dates for when all of that will occur. When the work is going to be done, and then when they can expect that they'll be ready for the final inspection. With the ultimate goal that these units can go back online and a potential CEO granted on May 23rd. Anybody have any questions regarding that? Good.
Your Honor, is there any reason for us to appear on Wednesday?
I don't. It has some bearing on certainly on your clients, particularly the 6 that we talked about, but I don't think there will be a need necessarily. If you accept to get an update on those particular units. All right. I think that might be necessary. Okay. No question, no further questions on that?
The only thing I was going to just logistically, I've got a conference room since
Pardon?
I have a conference room on here on street that sits a dozen people. I can have DOMs and DOMs on Tuesdays are closed, but I can.
The fact you know that is a problem, but okay.
From a city hall that's much more accessible. Happy to host.
Okay, don't care. You just figure out where you're gonna meet. It could be City Hall, it could be Mr. Friedman's office. If I gotta make a room here at the court, I'll do it. Just meet, hash it out. On Tuesday, during your meeting, you guys will be meeting. If you run into a log jam, Ms. Wilding will be available. She'll get me. I'll be in the middle of preliminary examinations, but I'll be happy to get on the phone. All right, I need this to get through. All right. Thank you. We're gonna have to. All right, on the other matter, we have the request for TROs, etc.
Your Honor, due to the prosecutor's case being sent back to circuit court, the tenants in these cases have elected to file dismissals in this case. I think the more appropriate.
On these and proceed on to the circuit court case.
Correct, Your Honor. We've got signed dismissals on behalf of everyone except for one person who I think had a
medical issue. He did give us permission to sign it on his behalf.
So we'll
On all 10.
that is correct, Your Honor.
So you have 9 of them?
One of them didn't have a TRO, so I think that one will remain.
Which one is that?
believe it's, Ms. McGuire.
What's this one? Oh, companion. What's it a companion to?
Honestly, I don't know.
You think it's Miss McGuire's case?
I believe so.
Is there going to be any objection from anyone to dismissal of these?
No objection.
No objection. All right. So you have 9 dismissals. Is that right?
I do, Your Honor. 9.
9? All right. Then those will be dismissed. I just don't know which one you don't have.
I can give you the case numbers or I can give you the names.
Are we, hold it, so we had 10, right?
Yes.
And so you have 9, so there's one that's going to be missing. And is that the individual who you have not gotten to sign? As of yet?
Your Honor, yes, and they weren't on the docket for today. I think there's only 9 on the docket this afternoon.
You have 10? I have 10 on the docket too. So, well, here's what I'll do.
I'm sorry.
Here's what I'll do, which will make a little bit more sense. We'll take those dismissals. I'll sign off on the dismissals. The one that's left over, I'll set on Wednesday and we'll figure out what we're gonna do with that.
We may file something.
Right, in the interim. is what I-
I was looking at the docket from Friday and that's why we only addressed the 9, so.
9, gotcha. Okay, so there's that one. These are all gonna be dismissed. Okay. Anything else from either side?
We were prepared to take more testimony from the city, but given the updates, I think maybe stopping there.
Yeah, I think stopping here, but what I want to do is, since I certainly did not anticipate ending this early, the way things are going. What I want to do is I want to meet with counsel on this side, and then I want to meet with, and I'd like legal services to be involved, and I'd like to meet with the city and individuals representing that in a moment, okay? And see if we can try to streamline some other things. All right, court then actually adjourned, because I don't think I'll be coming back. Thank you.
No.